Anton is a lazy teenager who doesn't do much with his time other than smoke the green stuff, watch TV, and hang out with his friends Mick and Nub. Oh, and he occasionally lusts over his neighbour Molly. However, Anton's hand gets a mind of its own and starts killing people without Anton being able to control it. Well, that's gotta suck. You don't need that on your list of adolescent issues. Oh. Once he severs his hand from his body, his zombified hand still has a mind of its own and a lust for causing chaos. Demon hunter Debbie LaCure shows up, determined to find the possessed hand and to stop the evil once and for all, in this enjoyably gory horror stoner comedy full of carnage and laughs. So it's time to keep our hands busy as we look into 10 things that you didn't know about idle hands. So, let's check it out. Seriously, the possessed hand in this movie is one nasty little bugger. Number 10. Origins of the title. The title Idle Hands comes from the saying, idle hands are the devil's playthings, or idle hands are the devil's playground. What the saying basically means is that people who are lazy and don't use their time productively are easily led astray by evil. You know, it means people who are bored and don't do much in their life easily fall into mischievous activity. Now, there is some debate as to where the saying actually comes from. There are some claims that it was popularized by Benjamin Franklin, and thus he may have started the phrase, but it's also believed to be an updated proverb from the Bible. So the saying has been around for a long time. Really, ever since the creation of lazy people, I guess. Number 9. The movie came out during a craze of teen movies. In the late 90s, the teen movie craze came back with a vengeance. Not ever since the 50s had the teen movie genre been so mainstream. It all started with Scream, which also brought back the slasher movie trope too, and this newfound teen movie craze carried on with other movies like American Pie, which is essentially the teen comedy, The Faculty, which is the teen alien invasion movie, Go, which is the teen version of Pulp Fiction, Cruel Intentions, the teen version of Dangerous Liaisons. Yeah, look, you get the point. The two biggest hits in the genre was the teen horrors and the teen comedies. Well, Idle Hands takes both genres to deliver a teen horror comedy. Yep, a full year before Scary Movie would do the same thing, and incidentally was a lot more successful. In fact, according to Wikipedia, the poster of Idle Hands is parodying the poster of fellow teen movie The Craft, which was more of a serious horror film. And by jeez, would you look at that? I've never noticed it before, but yeah, it totally is a parody of that. So really, the late 90s was the perfect time for Idle Hands, probably the only real time it could have been released. This was now the perfect and ripe time for a horror comedy about a lazy stoner kid whose demonic disembodied hand runs amok. Although, interestingly, according to IMDb, the main villain was originally not the hand, but it was going to be Anton's undead mum. However, the time when this movie was released, and the fact that it was a teen movie, would in fact actually lead to this movie's eventual downfall, which we'll discuss soon enough. Number 8. From a production that gave us Power Rangers, Leprechauns, and International Men of Mystery. The script for Idle Hands was written by Terry Hughes and Ron Milbauer. Now, I couldn't find out too much information about them, other than Terry Hughes had previously worked on TV and wrote episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Wow, that's cool. And after Idle Hands, both writers would write episodes for Supernatural, and directing duties were given to Rodman Flender, who previously directed Leprechaun 2, and would go on to direct episodes for TV shows including The Office, Ugly Betty, and Gilmore Girls. Idle Hands was also produced by Jennifer Todd and Suzanne Todd, both of whom had experience with comedy, as they also co-produced the Austin Powers movies, as well as Memento. Okay, yeah, Memento. Random. So clearly there was an interesting and unique collection of minds being used to create this off-the-wall horror comedy. I guess another big piece of the behind-the-scenes puzzle is what was the inspiration for Idle Hands. Well, in his review, Roger Ebert felt that the movie took heavy inspiration from the possessed hand scene in Evil Dead 2. And yes, it is very similar, even down to our main hero having to self-remove his own hand. Ebert also explains that this plot of evil hands in movies has its origins in the Oliver Stone-directed The Hand, released in 1981, and long before that, The Beast with 5 Fingers all the way back in 1946. So yeah, this evil hand trope, although unique, isn't all that uncommon. Number 7, filmed at the same location as a classic horror movie. Seeing that Idle Hands was a Sony picture, a great deal of the movie was done at Sony Pictures Studios in Culver City, California. The neighborhood where we see the Anton character lives in was in Pasadena. In fact, it was the same neighborhood used to film the classic John Carpenter masterpiece, Halloween. And yes, once you find out that Idle Hands has a shared location with Halloween, it gives it that special kind of horror movie connection, what with it being connected to a classic era of horror cinema. In addition to that, the school dance that takes place at the end of the movie was filmed in the same gym where the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie was filmed, as well as Jawbreaker. Number 6, Devon Sawa was looking for edgy material to break away from the teen idol image. So Idle Hands features many well-known faces turning up to bring this energetic teen horror comedy movie to life, including Devon Sawa as Anton, the lazy kid with a demonic hand. He had previously starred as the human form of Casper in the Casper movie, and in the following year after Idle Hands, starred in fellow teen horror movie Final Destination. According to information provided by creepycatalog.com, Sawa took on the non-conventional role of Anton in Idle Hands because he was going through a stage in his career where he was transitioning from being a former teen idol. So he deliberately set out to star in weird, edgy things, material that was more alternative and not really within the norm, with Sawa citing Idle Hands, SLC Punk, and the Stand music video as an example of this transition that he was going through. And going back to creepycatalog.com, in the scene where we see Anton washing out his mouth with soap liquid, Sawa improvised that on the spot and actually filled his mouth with the stuff. Idle Hands also stars Jessica Alba as Molly, the girl next door who Anton has a massive crush on, who gets caught up in this weird demonic caper, who, as we all know, would go on to be a huge star, and during the 2000s was in high demand, starring in several big mainstream movies like Fantastic Four and Sin City. Seth Green stars as one of Anton's stoner friends, Mick. Throughout the late 80s and early 90s, Green was turning up all over the place, and horror was no exception. I mean, heck, he started the 90s as Richie Tozer in the It miniseries and ended the 90s in the Buffy TV series. And according to IMDb, he originally auditioned to play the lead role of Anton. Eldon Hansen plays the other stoner friend, Nub. He previously starred as the player with a mean swing in The Mighty Ducks, and more recently featured in the Daredevil series. And is it just me, or does he look a bit like Orson Welles? Seriously, if they ever make a biopic, cast that guy. Vivica A. Fox starred as Debbie LeCure, a high priestess demon hunter who's hunting the evil behind the killings. She has starred in many things over the years, including Independence Day and Kill Bill. Heck, even the band The Offspring turns up in a humorous cameo, where they seemingly get killed off. Damn, and you guys thought Woodstock 99 was a messed up gig. Ugh. Number 5. The Hand was performed by a famous hand performer. So what about the hand that runs amok and commits evil deeds? Well, the hand was performed by Canadian actor and magician Christopher Hart, who previously provided his hand to play the Thing a few years earlier in the Addams Family movies. Yep, that's the same hand. So the hand that was used as the Thing in the Addams Family is the same demonic hand in Idle Hands.
To quote Angry Snow White, weird, weird.
There's also a story floating out there that the actor who played Randy, Jack Noteworthy, and the actress who played Tanya, Katie Wright, found out that they were half-siblings while making the movie. And what makes this even more awkward is a scene where the Randy character is hitting on Tanya. Ugh.
Once again, I quote Angry Snow White, weird, weird.
In addition to all that, the dog we see in Idle Hands, Duke, is the same dog who played the stoner talking dog in Road Trip, and Tom DeLonge of Blink-182 has a cameo as a drive-through operator. Idle Hands is actually one of those films that features tons of faces turning up throughout the film that make you say, oh yeah, I've seen that person in that other thing I saw that time. Number 4, everyone had their own ideas as to what the movie was. Now, there's some insightful information provided by IMDb, in which in 2007, Seth Green spoke of his experience with Idle Hands to the AV Club, where he basically said that everyone who worked on the movie had their own ideas and visions with what the movie was. For example, he and the other dudes who starred in the movie thought that they were making more of a teen drama, be that one with some comical elements, and that they really went out to portray themselves as best friends. The director Rodman Flender was trying to make a classical, abstract horror movie that was a callback to Dario Argento movies, and the studio wanted more of a cutesy zombie movie. I guess one with playful zombies going for a more PG-13 aesthetic. I don't know, maybe zombies but painted with shades of Goonies, I guess. I always found the two zombie friends who still hang around to help Anton without a care in the world, you know, not fazed by it and still doing their usual thing, to be similar to Undead Jack from An American Werewolf in London. And finally, the young people who the movie was test screened to wanted it to be more of a stoner comedy. So clearly there was lots of ideas being thrown around, with them forming together to get the movie that we got. Although one thing I will add is I don't know how Seth Green thought that Idle Hands was more of a teen drama. You would have thought that by the time he was made up to be a zombie with a bottle sticking out of his head, that was a pretty good indication that he was starring in a pretty wacky movie. Oh well, it all works out in the end. Number 3, Idle Hands Around the World. So most people are familiar with the main poster used, with the Idle Hands characters walking down a school hallway. It's all very fun, and gives it a sort of Beetlejuice vibe. This very early poster is really weird and abstract, going for an art house silhouette look. I don't know, is it me, or does it also kind of look a bit Hitchcockian? But maybe this poster doesn't quite generate the Millennium Y2K Generation X vibe the movie was going for. I kind of like the French poster, which shows our characters as seen on the US poster, only with a red background. In some parts of the world, the movie would have its title changed. In Japan, it was retitled to Idols, and the German renaming was more to the point, where it was called The Killer Hand. Yep, that checks out. There was definitely a killer hand that was pissing everyone off in this movie, so yep, no complaints here. Oh, and one last thing. I also remember this alternative poster doing the rounds too, which shows our main cast as a happy bunch of friends all hanging out, kind of making it look like American Pie, be that American Pie with a big green funky hand. Number 2, deleted ending. So the climax of Idle Hands sees Jessica Alba's character tied to the roof of a car at the school's auto shop, where the hand, which is now wearing a hand puppet, tries to crush her. But Anton uses the power of weed to get the hand high and thus stops Molly from being crushed. The hand then leaps out, Debbie shows up, throws the dagger at the hand, stabbing it to Seth Green, and that's it. That's all she wrote. However, Idle Hands originally had an entirely different ending. The original ending took place at the high school swimming pool, where Molly is hiding from the hand on the school diving board, where the hand attacks her, and the pool turns into a portal to hell, where it actually looks really cool, and reminds me of the closet portal at the end of Poltergeist. Anton and Debbie show up to help Molly, but hands grow out of the wall to restrain them. Anton gets free and saves Molly from falling into the hell portal. Debbie throws him the dagger, where Anton stabs the hand, causing the hell portal to explode. Now Anton and Molly are trapped on the burning diving board. The only way to save Molly and to close the portal is for Anton to sacrifice himself by leaping into the portal, which closes before he gets there, causing him to crash to the bottom of the pool, and is seemingly dead, and it's played out quite serious. A stairway to heaven appears where Mike and Nub descend up the stairs, but Anton stays behind and survives. Wow, now this is definitely a much different ending, be that a more ambitious one. So why was it cut? Well, on the DVD, director Rodman Flender explains that it was all about finding the right balance between comedy and horror. He felt that this alternative ending had scope and spectacle, but didn't feel like it went with the rest of the movie, and it also just felt too serious. So it just wasn't in tone with what the rest of the movie was. So the studio allowed Flender to go out and film a new ending, hence the one that we got. And to be honest, the ending that we did get does feel like it belongs more with the rest of the movie. Seth Green further elaborated in his 2007 AV Club interview, where he said that when the movie was being screened to test audiences, the young people in the audience wanted the movie to go more in the direction of a stoner comedy, and for weed itself to save the day, which led to the hand being defeated by the wacko tobacco. He also said that it was decided to show Jessica Alba in a state of undress too, when her shirt gets ripped. I guess to keep all the teenagers at the time happy, I guess. Personally, I think the ending of the final film is better and does feel more in sync with the rest of the movie. And yeah, the other ending just felt like it's a serious demon exorcist type movie. So a good call on that one, but it's still interesting to see the unused ending nevertheless. Number 1. Sick and Twisted. Idle Hands was finally released in April 1999, and to not beat around the bush and to just say it how it is, the movie was an absolute bomb. It would only go on to make a dire $4.2 million on a $25 million budget. So as far as 1999 goes, Idle Hands was not going to be bringing in the same box office numbers as The Phantom Menace or The Sixth Sense. Man, this movie deserved so much better. So where did it all go wrong? Well, the movie was released just 10 days after the Columbine tragedy, where suddenly the world was shocked and appalled with the devastating events. And I guess that no one at that moment in time was in the mood to be watching a violent, gory movie that revolved around teenagers. And worse yet, one that involved scenes of chaos at a high school. It just really wasn't the right moment for it. In fact, going back to IMDb, John McCain, who was a senator at the time, specifically spoke about Idle Hands in a meeting about violence shown in media. And Cracked further explains that Idle Hands was singled out as a movie that could potentially cause violence before it was even released. Where fellow Senator Joe Lieberman would say, quote, "A sensible place to start this self-regulation, this self-control, would be for Sony to pull back a new movie that I gather is set to be released this week called Idle Hands, followed by, quote, by all reports, another grossly violent film targeted at teens that uses killing as a form of comic relief," unquote. As a result, the movie's premiere was cancelled, Colorado refused to screen it, and it's believed that all this discourse led to hardly anyone going to see it. Now, here's what I think happened. I think sometimes when a disaster or tragedy occurs and everyone is just left shocked and devastated, governments get into a panic and want to insist to the public that they're in control and have the ordeal covered. So I'm guessing that this was some members of government basically saying, hey, it's okay, we're in control, look, we're already on the case. After all, we're going after that Idle Hands movie. And look, as ridiculous and irrational this all sounds in hindsight, this isn't finger pointing or blaming. I actually think it's common for all people in all walks of life to have extreme knee-jerk reactions to disasters. I think it's just part of human nature. Rationality often does fly out the window. I believe the movie's release probably should have been put on hold. Once again, it just wasn't the right time for it. After all, the year prior, before Idle Hands' release, both Urban Legends and The Faculty came out. And the year after the release of Idle Hands, Scream 3 and Final Destination also came out. And no one accused those movies of being dangerous and potentially leading to teenagers to kill each other in the real world. Even the movie's promotional material featured a review calling it sick and twisted. Look, whoever decided to put that there, you're not helping. This movie never stood a chance. In fact, I'm pretty sure Idle Hands skipped movie theatres entirely here in Australia. I only knew about it when it came out as a video rental on VHS. Yes, one night at home, we were having one of those family nights where the family gathers around the TV to watch a new release video that was rented from a video store. And this one evening in late 1999, for whatever reason, Idle Hands was chosen. And my parents didn't like it. They too thought it was sick and twisted. And I was like, yeah, that's why it's awesome. Being 15 to 16 at the time, I was just the right age, and honestly, I love this movie. It's a brilliant, gory comedy full of genuinely clever, funny dialogue and impressive set pieces. In fact, all my friends loved it too. And despite the moral panic, we all had the common sense to know that it's just a movie, it's not real, so there's no need for us to go around and start killing each other in real life. We were kind of on cue that this was just a film. And it seems that everyone else was too, as Idle Hands has gone on to become a cult classic. So much so that there's recently been talks of a remake to be written by that kid who a few years ago was suddenly in everything, and produced by Jason Reitman. Although it's been stated that it's more of a reimagining. Well, I wish they would reimagine themselves to not make the movie, but okay. However, I haven't really been able to find out too much about it, and it was to be released in 2025, but we're in 2025 and it's not here, so is it still happening? Is it not happening? I don't know. I think if you want to bring Idle Hands back, then make it a musical. Yeah, I can totally see that. Idle Hands the musical. I'll give it a hand. Regardless, Idle Hands is honestly a blast. A fun, unique splatterfest full of genuine laughs and shocks, which just suffered the misfortune of the real-life circumstances surrounding it when it was released.
What happened at Columbine is a serious tragedy that should always be remembered. So we can try and figure out what caused it, why did this happen, how did this happen, and how do we stop it in the future. However, what didn't cause Columbine was a movie that hadn't even been released yet. But regardless, I do feel like Idle Hands has gone on to be considered a cult classic, with a fan base of adoring fans. And for good reason. It's a wonderfully unique, quirky movie. Anyway, I'm Minty, and who knows, if Idle Hands had been released 1 year earlier or 1 year later, maybe things would have been very different. See ya!